Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Remote Teaching Diaries hosted by Quizlet. My name is Rory Yakubov, and I've got an amazing panel of educators here who are all ready to share exactly the experiences, the highs, the lows, and everything in between of what we've been going through these last couple of months. Myself, my name is Rory Yakubov. Like I mentioned before, I'm a high school math teacher. I currently teach Algebra 1 and Geometry in Old Bridge, New Jersey. It's my 15th year teaching, but it's definitely the craziest year. I'm learning a lot, not by my own willingness to, but because I have to. It's just been so crazy. And I know everyone here has got amazing stories, and I would just love for everyone to introduce themselves first. Anisa?
Hi, my name is Anisa Khandwalla. I'm from Houston, Texas. This is year 10 for me. So this is kind of that like make it break it year, I feel like. Hopefully I'm gonna make it. I feel like I am, but there's days. There are days.
Definitely. What do you teach?
I teach 6th and 7th grade math at this point.
Gary?
Excellent. Yeah, I'm Gerry Brooks. I am a 27-year veteran educator from Lexington, Kentucky, 10 years in the classroom and 7 years in administration. And like you guys, I'm just kind of hanging in there trying to support everybody and all this stress just because of what's going on here. So it's been very stressful in our area, a lot of change ups, but we're kind of hanging in there and trying, like everybody is, doing the best we can do.
Yeah. Olivia?
Hi guys, my name is Olivia Bertels. I live in Chicago and I'm currently teaching 6th grade. I teach like a combination social studies and ELA course. This is and I really had to think about this, 7th year in the classroom. We've lost count at this point. It's my 7th year in the classroom, my 2nd year in Chicago Public Schools. So we've actually been fully remote all year long. So I've at least had some consistency. So sorry to hear that there's been ups and downs with that for all of the rest of y'all.
Yeah, and that's actually what I wanted to ask you guys first is like, what's your situation like right now? For me in New Jersey, we were back in early August, we were supposed to be hybrid right from the beginning. We didn't go back until Labor Day for school, but they made a call for us to be fully remote. And when we got that call in early August that we were going to be fully remote, the biggest weight I feel like got lifted off of me. I was like, okay, I can manage that because I did that in the spring. And then September rolled around and we were remote. And just this week now, everything's a blur. It almost feels like it would have been last week I started hybrid, but it was no 2 days ago. But it feels like a week ago. Started hybrid. I've been stress eating like crazy. I've been super exhausted, nervous, but a lot of people told me, hey, once you get into the classroom and you actually start to see students come in, and by come in, I mean like I've had between 1 student and 5 students in my class at a time. It's crazy. You'll start to feel like your old self. And I think I definitely felt that today. Today was my second day of actually having students with me for a hybrid, and I was teaching synchronously. So I was teaching live to the other students that were home. It made me feel good, but I still, there's so much that's missing. There's so much of me that the students don't know, and it's mid-November. And I just know we would have had this great vibe going on, and it's completely opposite. They just don't know me yet. And I don't know if they're ever going to get to know me this year, and it makes me pretty sad. What about you, Anisa?
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that knowing you. I try to put as much as myself into like my classroom digitally as I can, but it's not the same. So our district started virtual. Everyone was virtual, and our county was actually in a red zone, so we weren't even allowed back on campus. And then as numbers started decreasing, they're rising back up again. Yay, yay, Texas. As numbers decreased, they started opening it up to parents to choose, do you want to go virtual or do you want to be in person? Um, so teachers also kind of got the option in the sense that if we couldn't be in person, we had to prove why. I live with my older mother, and she was a reason my district thankfully approved of being at home, and because she's high risk. And so I am virtual, hopefully for the remainder of the school year. But as a result of me being virtual, my class size doubled. So I had like 150 kids. Now I have like 270.
No, you don't.
I'm so
Crazy.
tired all the time. And instead of teaching just 6th grade, I now teach 7th grade as well, which I haven't taught in 7 years. So it's a lot.
So Anisa, you're getting double pay, right?
Oh God, I wish.
That's
So yeah.
insane.
That's crazy. Well, here in Fayette County, we got Fayette County is kind of like the same. I think the biggest stress right now in Fayette County is the changes. We just keep having changes. We came in and we have been 100% virtual, and then they made a plan to come back hybrid. And then right before the plan was to take place, they ditched the plan and decided to just stay virtual. And then there's a lot of pressure from parents, and I do feel sorry for our board members trying to make that decision. But the latest decision they have made is that we are doing targeted learning. And the schools are able to pick students that can come in for 2 hours during the day, and the teachers teach the regular day, and then they have an extra 2 hours from 2 to 4. So it's kind of like that with no extra pay, but they bring in targeted students, and they can choose. Like we chose special education students and speech students. Some of the schools chose the lowest 10% performing students, but even with that, it's different. I ate dinner with a teacher today, and she said they have 14 kids coming in for the entire school, and we have like 135. So it's just, it's been a huge stress and big strain. And I know I'm so respectful of the teachers. I actually see a lot of positive relationship building. So I hope you all will think about that. I know you all, it's not the same, obviously, but I also want you to remember the stress that your administration is going through, because we have no contact. You guys at least get to see them. We have none. We haven't seen any of these kids, and think about how stressful that is, especially to an administrator that likes to be likes to build those relationships. So it's been a stressful time. I think the only thing that gets us through it is knowing we have everybody else is in the exact same thing. So Olivia, what's happening with you guys?
So big shout out to my union on this one. We were supposed to be hybrid, and then the union said absolutely not. Obviously in Chicago, there are major equity issues with which kids we're sending back, the facilities that they're going to be in. But I have really the consistency is key. Like I mentioned earlier, for me, like that stress of the back and forth and will we, won't we, that's not happening for me. So my biggest problems revolve around those connections and tech issues and, access for my kids and stuff like that. But I personally don't have that sort of like looming, am I going to be pushed back into the classroom? Because I don't know about you. I mean, I feel like this is the whole country. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. Like every day in the news, it's like the worst, the most cases recorded, the most deaths recorded. We're running out of ventilators again. Like, I feel like, what fresh hell awaits us every single day. But I've been okay. I mean, we've been okay. Certainly, I've learned to stay away from like comments on Facebook articles and Twitter. Definitely a lot of pressure from the public. And we are really in one of those professions where people sort of seem to think they know what we do. And it's hard to telegraph what's actually happening and the risks that we're assuming as teachers and as school personnel, administrators as well, if we were to send kids back. And so, it's a whole big mess, but we're making it so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have some of those, like our same concerns generally. I mean, we're all going to have some of the same concerns. I'm definitely worried about, getting sick myself now that I'm back. We had some cases in our school actually with some of the high school teachers. We get all these phone calls, from our administration, like giving us the updates and things like that. And then finding out a student tested positive, or, hey, did our football team just play another team? And then they got someone on that team tested. So then our football play, it just spirals so fast and it's so nerve-wracking. So to layer that about, hey, I need to make sure I'm healthy. I want to still be able to have my parents come over and visit me without feeling like I'm going to put them in danger. And we've been super careful about that too. I have 2 real children of my own, and when they went back to school, because my town is hybrid, my parents didn't come over for like 6 weeks because they were like, we're not sure. And I was like, yes, I totally understand. Like we have to go back to like it's March right now, 100%. So, I worry about myself getting sick. What are the chances? My students don't know me right now at all. They really never got a good chance to know me online. I remember before everything was going to start, and I was like, oh, I'm going to be remote learning. I'm going to be teaching through the computer and spring. That was okay. But the big difference was I had those kids for 7 months. And so to have them give them instruction for 3 months was a breeze because they're like, oh, Mrs. Yakubov, she's crazy, but we'll go along with whatever she says because we trust her. So now to have like brand new kids, right? And it's been 2 months, but still, I don't know everyone's name. I got an email the other day and I was like, I've never seen that name before. I think this kid is emailing the wrong teacher. I had to go through my rosters. I was like, oh crap, this kid is on my roster. I've never spoken to before. I would have put money on it that this was not my student. And I feel so guilty about that because, you know, we all talk about it through social media, like relationships and building relationships, and that's the most important thing. And I thought I'd be a pro at it going into this year, like, oh, great, I can get all the kids to, you know, be excited about math, whether they like it or not, and it'll be great, we'll have a good time. And it's kind of just felt like the exact opposite of that. And then I feel like I'm failing, that, you know, what I'm doing isn't worth it, that the instruction I'm giving to my students, there's no connection to me. So then they might as well be getting, you know, taught from another country by another random teacher because that's like the same thing I have. So I'm hoping now with hybrid, but our hybrid numbers for kids coming in are super low. It's definitely under 50%. I know some districts are even less than that, so I guess I can't complain too much. But you know, those are just my general worries, like getting sick. Am I ever going to make connections with my students? I thought I was going to be able to do it well, and I'm just clearly like basically failing right now. I don't know. Anisa, what are you generally worried about?
So my biggest concern was, will I get sick? And so me being home has definitely alleviated that concern. And then the other concern was, you know, will I have to go to campus? Will I stay home? Like Olivia was worried, like potentially worried about, and that has also gone for me. So unless they change things, but hopefully they don't. So my biggest worry is very similar to you, Rory. It's like, am I making those connections? Same as you, my kids know me as super crazy. So in March, I knew those kids. They knew exactly what I was in the classroom. They knew exactly what my expectations were. They knew, you know, kind of a general guideline of math. Like they knew what was expected, how we learned, so on and so forth. And so all of these kids coming in, some of them not very tech savvy, even though they had it in March, we don't have those expectations set even now. It's November and still like they'll blurt out while I'm talking and I'm like, oh God, this is like very frustrating, but it's hard because tone wise, it doesn't come off as well in like, and I don't even see their face. So I don't even know who is, you know, talking over me. And it's a lot. And some classes are really, really big. And so the loading time for Teams and like the internet and everything, that's also a big issue. Like it takes forever for me to share my screen with some of my classes. One of my classes is 57, like online kids.
Oh my God.
Like,
No.
how can I function this way? And like you said, I may have seen their name because I try to do a friend from Instagram, she does like an attendance question. So I try to do a fun attendance question. And yeah, it wastes like 2 to 3 minutes or even up to 5 for this, 57 person class. But at least I'm saying their names over and over again. I have no idea what they look like. They may not respond beyond that 1 word or 3 words that week, but at least I heard them, you know? And so I have that little smidge of hope is that, I've heard them before. But yeah, like sometimes they email me and I'm like, where are you from? Like, I barely remember you. It's so hard.
Huge
so
stress
that's my
level.
worry as well as this building relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my concern is that in 2 ways. My biggest concern is the gap that we're creating. We are widening a gap, hugely widening a gap, and we have worked so hard to close the gap between our low-income students that are struggling, whose parents are working 2 and 3 jobs, and now all of a sudden we put them in a situation that the gap is just really and truly widening because our high-performing students are there and they're focused and they've got internet and they can get on there and they're doing well. We've unfortunately had a lot of kids move to to some private schools in the area because they're in. And so now they're going to come back in, and it's just the whole thing is just crazy. And so I just feel like we're widening this gap, and I feel even worse for our students that don't speak English. We can look face to face, we can see their struggles, and all of a sudden they're sitting at home with a parent that doesn't know how to help them, and it's disheartening to see this gap that we're creating. And then my other concern is just climate and culture at schools. This has created a huge discrepancy for workloads for schools. And you have some people that just naturally fall into this. I don't have a lot to do. We just happen to have this with a couple of 3 or 4 different teachers because of what their schedule is, what they do. We have this a lot of time with paraprofessionals. Our bus drivers are being paid full time and not working. And so we just now have this huge gap between the workload of a classroom teacher that's getting online at 7 a.m. and working until 4 and then having to prepare. And then we've always had that. There's always been somebody, everybody complains, the PE teacher doesn't have to do this or that.
Right.
But we have this has created a huge gap of workload. And that is the biggest, when I talk to my principal friends, the biggest stress in every school that we talk about is the fact that there is now inner arguing about the discrepancy of workloads, and it's I don't really know how to fix it, and it's really creating havoc on climate and culture.
Yeah, we have our assistant principal is new this year. It's her first year as an administrator, and we have 2 new teachers, and both of them, I think it's their first year teaching. And so I keep thinking about them like, oh my God, what is happening in your brain right now? I can't even imagine. But we definitely have that as well. I think there's just, it's hard to, even as adults, right? We want to like sort of rise above that pettiness of like, oh, I am killing myself every day. I'm working so hard, and some people aren't. And there's just, I have friends who work in the service industry and they're out of work, and, everything, I think there's just sort of this like impending doom, right? Like everything is falling down around us all the time. And unfortunately, it impacts the kids more than it impacts us. And I was just talking to a friend the other day. I feel awful all the time. Every teacher and administrator I know feels awful all the time. And we're adults with like, coping mechanisms and like well-developed senses of self. And then we have these 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and we're talking about, for me, I feel like I want to connect with the kids and they want to connect with me. And the screen is just such a barrier. Like mine are so scared to show their faces. And Rory, I did the same thing at the beginning of the year. I was very like, laissez-faire about cameras being on and please, participate in every other way. And then now it's second quarter and I've never seen, so-and-so's face. I've never heard their voice. And while there are obviously extenuating circumstances, like I obviously created a threshold that I am now fighting against. So I've created this problem for myself, and it's just a whole thing. So I think, all of us, it sounds like, in the classroom or in a school climate or environment, I thrive on the relationship thing. That's my classroom management. Like I want the kids to want to be in my class. I want them to want to come and feel comfortable and feel safe and all of those things. And we all work so hard to build that. And it's so, it just doesn't easily translate. It doesn't easily translate to online. This is a whole nother ball game that none of us are formally trained to do. And I think we're being asked to make lemonade out of some just very small, very sour lemons right now. And there's a lot of pressure, and that pressure is crushing, I think, for a lot of people. I think we're going to lose a lot of teachers at the end of this, probably.
Oh, definitely. And, it's funny, right? So, we all know it's tough right now. We're thinking, I think like I'm just not doing enough, or what I think is good probably isn't good. And then I kind of think back of when I was teaching my first year or two and I thought something was really great, and I look back at that and I was like, that was terrible, or that was good. Like I wonder if we're almost going to look back at this and be like, wow, I can't believe all the stuff I put together to make this happen. That was actually fantastic. And it kind of just leads me into what I wanted to ask you guys next, and we'll flip the order around. So Olivia, I'll go to you next on this one. Is has there been anything that you used like technology wise or some website or like a new, um, just new practice in your classroom that you actually are happy about because of remote learning, like it's brought into it? Like I used to always have a struggle with my high school students, if they were absent or they didn't understand the lesson, and then the amount of like extra help and reteaching, or I'd say, hey, like go to YouTube. There's so many videos out there. And now because of this, I've been pre-recording all of my lessons so that, if I'm teaching with my students in my 70-minute block virtually and a kid has, technology issues, at least they'll never miss the lesson. They can always go to my YouTube channel now and watch it. So like a silver lining for me has been now that I've been able to make my whole, what's that called, register or list of lessons now that I kind of wish I always had access to, but now it's kind of that perfect timing. So right now my students and all my future students going forward, as long as it's Algebra 1 or geometry, I refuse to teach anything else at this point. They'll have that as like a reference point now. Like, oh, you were absent. Oh, well, I made this video 4 years ago in 2020 when the sky was falling. And so now this is going to benefit you. And that was like the one silver lining. So, is there anything that you feel like has actually been something that you're going to use and keep going with, Olivia?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say this is necessarily new, but it's something that I've certainly like amped up a ton, is just asking for feedback from my kids. I'm using Google Forms. Like we're on a weekly Google form in my classroom, just asking them what they think is working, what's going well for you. And I have asked for a lot of leeway from my administrators who have been great about allowing me that freedom. I have restructured my classroom thrice now, just the way I'm spending. Like I'm the same way. I have like I have my morning block and then I have my afternoon block, and I just started asking my kids like, hey, we're meeting with whole group for 45 minutes, and they were like, we hate it. Like, we don't like it. There's too many kids. We don't feel comfortable talking. I was putting way too much weight on whole groups. And then we were meeting in small groups for like a tiny amount of time. And just when I asked them, it was like so across the board, they all said, can we please have more time in small groups? Like, we like having more access to you. We feel like we can turn our cameras on and all of that stuff. And so I was like, yeah, like, yes, please. Absolutely. Like, if that's what you think is going to help you, then definitely. And I feel like I waited until like 5 weeks in to ask them. And the Google Forms are key. Like Google Forms are choice. There's multiple choice questions. There's short answers. Like, I want to know what's up. Even give me a 1 to 10. Like, what do you love? What's your favorite part of the day? What's your least favorite part? But I wish I had not waited until 5 weeks, because now I'm asking them way more often, and verbally too. And I think now that they realize that, that's not falling on deaf ears. Like they're not just screaming into the void, and I'm actually reading what they're saying and listening and making adjustments. I think that's been something that even in the last couple of weeks, we just switched. This is our first week of second quarters. We start really late. So I think even just this quarter, I have had way more buy-in. I've had more cameras on. I've had more participation, because they feel like they're being heard a little bit. So just getting feedback from your kids has been super key for me.
I really need to do that.
It's so helpful.
I'm way overdue.
Love that. We, one of the things that I've seen that's very positive on this from administration is just the teams coming together. And, I'm not real familiar with middle school and high school, but in elementary, you have a grade level, and some of them will departmentalize, some of them will be self-contained. But I have just loved, no matter what that group is doing, they're all coming together. They're doing morning shows where all the teachers are in on it. So now, instead of just seeing your teacher, you're seeing all the third grade teachers. And then they're even exchanging where all of a sudden the fourth grade teachers are going to do the morning show for third grade, because that's the teachers they're going to have next year. So I've seen a lot of relationship building among the grade levels, and a lot of helping each other. What I found interesting is what we've had is younger generations following older teachers who've been there forever, and all of a sudden it's flip-flopped. We've got older generation teachers who aren't used to Zoom and aren't used to all these things, and all of a sudden they're having to rely on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 year teachers. And so I've loved the flip-flopping. and the respect that's going both ways. Whereas before it was always like, let's let the veteran teacher talk. Let's listen to the veteran teacher first. And now those veteran teachers are like, oh my gosh, I need help from you and your experience on that. So, we're seeing a lot of good come out of it through all the stress, but there's still, some good in there. So, Anisa, what do you think?
I do something similar to Olivia. I have a weekly check-in, which is one of my favorite things to do. The only problem is not all of my kids do it. So, like I said earlier, I have like 263. 200 filled it out this time around. So there's 63 that's still, I don't even know, how they're feeling. And I can't force anything, right? Like there comes up, like I put the link out there, I give you time. We spend 5 to 10 minutes of every like beginning of the week, go fill out your check-in. Like that is your warm-up today. And so that's one of the things I've loved, because I first put like a funny video, or like this week it was, dad jokes. And then I asked them, how was your week? Like what went well? What didn't go well? Can I help you with anything? Is there anything that I could do to help you? Is there anything you're struggling with? And then last I asked like a silly question. So then today's silly question, or yesterday's, was, okay, now tell me a funny joke. So that way it like lets them let loose a little bit and they're more comfortable with just responding with whatever. And then I have one question that it's, I'm struggling right now, but it's okay. It's just been a rough week. I just want you to know. There's another one that's like, I'm okay. I'm doing fine. And then there's another one with, please schedule a meeting with me. So that's the one I look at first. I make sure I look at that after every class period to make sure I don't need to schedule a quick meeting. I've only had 3 or 4 kids use it, and it was like they had just transferred into my class. Like it was after the big, upheaval of the system, and they had just transferred in. And then there was another one with, listen, I didn't understand this topic. Can we do a quick tutorial? I was like, yeah. And that's when they said that, it was like, yes, you're advocating for you in some way, shape, or form. So I want to, hopefully, if things ever go back to normal, I want to still do some sort of weekly check-in, because relationships are key for me. When they come in, like I miss the silly little things, like the handshake at the door. Like each class would make up a handshake. And then I'd have to remember all of them, like it was just the little things, or like a unicorn being tossed around as we answer questions, just random moments where I could see the smiles and like we had fun and like dumb jokes in class. Like, so I try to embed as much of that as I can with my check-ins, and the feedback has helped to at least guide my teaching a little bit, or if there's anything I can do to help them if they're struggling with something. So that's helped for me.
Yeah. Have you guys like tried anything out this year with your students, thinking that it was going to be a great idea, and then it just kind of flopped? Like Olivia and I were talking about before, I told my students in the beginning of the year, hey, how, if you feel comfortable, put your cameras on. And if you, don't feel comfortable yet, you don't need to, but I would love to see your faces. And like the first week I got a couple faces, and then after that it's been radio silent. So I just made up my own rule that this week, hey, if we're going hybrid and I'm seeing kids live, I need to see your faces at home. Like that's it. I can't force them to. Shh, they don't know that. If someone said like no, but our district made sure everyone has devices. There's like so many laptops. They took all the laptops out of our classrooms and just, gave them to the students. And they even put like mobile hotspots out in town and stuff for kids to be able to have service, which is incredible. But, the video camera thing, I think I kind of started off on the wrong foot with my students. We use Microsoft Teams, and in Teams, and just like in Google Classroom, you can like set up different tabs and different channels and things like that. And I think I kind of overdid that going into the classroom. The school year, I was like, hey, if you need help, go to this channel and you can type all your help questions here. And hey, every time we log in, here's an attendance tab. Log in for attendance. If I was to show you screenshots, those are ghost towns. No one's using them, but I thought like, hey, if I have all this organized, all the kids are going to use it, and like, look at this, and the parents are going to be like, wow. No, it's been a waste of time. And I mean, luckily it didn't like take me a lot to put that stuff together or anything like that, but that's definitely been a flop. Like, I'm not going to go forward into it or try to push it. I feel like it's good to have extra things put up there, but it's just definitely not like the extra things I'm trying to put out there for my students are not working, but then I'm also not catching up on it. Do you feel like there's anything you guys you tried this year for remote or hybrid and then you kind of like backed out on it, or it's just really not going the way you hoped it would?
Well, our teachers thought it would be a great idea to leave cameras on for lunchtime.
Oh,
And then let the kids just interact. And, when you think about that, that's great because then they're eating. Well, then when you really think about it, is not great. It just got to be a little bit too much and kids trying to impress each other and had some bullying issues. So they changed it around, and this has worked out great, is those, discrepancies between workload teachers, some of our specialist teachers, some of our paraprofessionals, they are now assigned lunch bunch. And so they go into a teacher's, and so like the art teacher will go into a third grade classroom and they'll say, your lunch bunch is on Wednesday. Anybody wants to be there, Miss Crosby's going to be there. And then Miss Crosby actually monitors that. So the original idea was meant to socialize, and it didn't turn out very well. But then it worked out a little bit better because it gave those people that have that discrepancy of not having as much to do, and the kids can socialize, and the kids that really need it are there. And the kids that don't need it aren't there. So it has worked out well, but Lord, it was a catastrophe the first time.
oh my God.
Mine probably is also the camera thing. I told my kids, hey, no, I understand, like, we're all either, in a weird state. I get it. Like, life happens. But yeah, I feel like Dora some days because, like, I'm just looking out onto gray boxes. I'm like, somebody just, and I have one person in my 5th period class that will always have his camera on. And I gave him a shout out today. I'm like, thank you, buddy, for like always, being there for me. And then suddenly 3 or 4 flickered on. I was like, oh, more people exist. And what's funny is I know these kids, like 7th graders, I taught them last year, a lot of them. And so I'm like, dude, like, you're definitely not one to shy away from a camera. So I don't understand why you're hiding it right now, unless like you just don't feel like it. But I'm trying to do an activity tomorrow that I hope will help at least turn cameras on a little bit more. I'll give more feedback on that later. But yeah, I haven't tried anything crazy. I tried to do like an escape room, but it caused more questions than I thought it would. So I need like a kid to pretend go through it first, I think, next time. So that way they can be like, well, I don't understand what this means. Or can you explain this part? So that way I don't run into a million questions because I had to keep popping into breakout rooms because they didn't understand. So that.
Okay, I actually have a very good, very specific story for this. So we use, this is just very on brand for anyone who knows me in real life. Okay, so we use Google Meets. And back in the day, 3 weeks ago, they didn't have breakout rooms yet. Like that wasn't a feature that had been released. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a group project. Like I've heard so many people saying like, when you put the kids in breakout rooms, they all talk, they socialize, like it's so great. You don't have to, whatever. But I'm like, I don't have this feature. So I schedule Google Meets, like, and I invite the specific kids. Okay, so I'm not thinking, and I put myself in all of them, whatever. I'm not thinking. So like day 1, group 1, I'm like, all right, folks, like we're doing a group project, like get into it. We've been learning about culture. I'm like, you're, doing some research. Like I spent hours, I made all these documents, like we're ready to, there's a prep document. You're with, I put them in groups like based on social stuff and academic stuff. Like I really did it. Like I really got after this. And then I put them in the groups and the first day, and I didn't think about if I had 4 tabs open of noise, they were all, but on my computer was everybody, all of them at the same time, all of them talking. So I'm hearing like 60 kids speaking at the same time. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't just stop. Like they're into it. They're loving it. I'm like, oh my God, like, so-and-so has his camera on. Like, I can't believe this guy is talking. He never speaks. Like they're assigning roles and I'm like hype. Like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. I can't believe the participation. My ears are bleeding. Like, I don't know what to do. So I figured it out, but I had to wait a full class period. Like there's an extension that you can download to mute just specific tabs so I could like whatever. But I didn't think about it. I don't know. So like this whole like hours of a day, I just had to sit here like,
Right.
yeah, like turn, because I felt like I needed to, you know, supervise. I don't know. Anyway, so figured that out after one day. But that was just one of those. I was like, oh my god, like it's like you do so much prep, and then you're like, what is this? Who is this for? Like, what have I done? Why do I try? It was good for them, but I had a very loud hour and a half that day. Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
It's a lot. I mean, we're all going through so many different situations, but they all, you know, really mesh into each other in different cases. And I've actually picked up a lot of great ideas, guys. So I'm going to try some things out now with my students, and we'll see how that goes. But everyone here like just brought up so many good things. Something else I wanted to ask, and it's going to kind of wrap up some of our conversation here, guys, is, you know, we all handle like our stresses in so many different ways, and some of us are good at handling stress and some of us are not, and some of us are everywhere like in between, or it like ranges. Like I always feel like I play super cool, but I'm that like there's that phrase like something like you're like I'm a duck, like I'm a clam on the bottom, like my feet are spinning at the like, you know, going crazy at the bottom, trying to make it all happen and try to make things as perfect as I can, but they're definitely not perfect. It's like, you know, a bizarro world I think I live in. But I feel like, okay, well then I've done my best. If I put everything out as perfect as I possibly can, then I feel satisfied and good to go. But then along with that, we put so much out there, and then we have to do something for ourselves to say, you know, how do I keep myself positive enough to keep going without feeling too down about the things that aren't going so well. So like self-care things, and you know, sometimes self-care stuff can be a little cliche, like, oh, am I taking bubble baths? Like, well, that could be your self-care, right? For me, it was I was talking myself into, you know, how am I going to go into hybrid learning this week? Like, what do I need so I feel comfortable? And that just meant, hey, I need to go to Target and get a new bag for my laptops, and I need to go on Amazon, and I need to buy I use 2 different laptops and I have my iPad. So I'm like, I need to buy a beautiful new case for each one of those things because I need it to be protected. Because if it's protected, I'm going to be able to teach much better when I'm in my classroom. So I'm like checking off these things, and I'm like, oh, I also need to go get a manicure because I need to be able to look at my nails and be like, huh. And just those simple things, I con myself into thinking if I do this, then everything will be fine. That's my self-care process. Or I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm going to let myself on the way home, because I pass a Starbucks, there's going to be no problem for me to just stop at Starbucks on the way home. I've earned it. That's my version of self-care. I haven't done that yet. My app is ready to go. I get the notifications that there's like bonus points or double points tomorrow or something. So I'm like, I need to take advantage. But what are you guys doing? Are you doing anything kind of for yourself? Have you been neglecting yourselves? Have you really not been doing anything? Or how are you managing your stress?
You want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. So the one thing I do every day is I live near a lake, thankfully, and so I go around the lake every day, whether in the morning. I prefer in the morning because it lets me start my day, and it gets dark so quick now. So I'll go in the morning and I'll either listen to a podcast, I'll listen to music, or I'll even like watch TikTok videos, like just to relax. And that's helped start my day a lot better. And then on Sundays, every Sunday, I have a group of 4 friends and we go for a walk. A socially distanced, our masks are on, but we go for a walk. Sometimes it's 3 miles, sometimes it's 2 miles, sometimes it's 1 mile, and then we sit for an hour. But that starts my week off in like such a positive mindset, in the sense that, okay, if I can get through another day, I can do anything, right? Like I could do anything at this point. And so that's been my form of self-care, is just getting outdoors. And we've been lucky that it hasn't rained. So I'm knocking on all sorts of wood. But yeah, that's my form of self-care for sure.
We've been very lucky here that our gyms have been open. It was very stressful at the beginning of that, but I did get into the habit of walking for an hour every day. But now that my Orange Theory is open again, we have a lot of teachers that work out together, and so we'll text each other and say, let's work out here, here, and here. So you're getting that social interaction, and you got to skip every other treadmill, and so you're 6 feet apart. But that is just one of the great parts of the day, that I've got 3 or 4 different text groups of these people, and even when I don't go, we send each other the stats, and so that's been great. And then on the days I don't go, I get out and walk for an hour, and it's and I'm miserable when I'm not there. And one of the things I found out early on, which is going to sound like so stupid, is taking a shower and putting on clean clothes. Because at the very beginning, I mean, it was just real easy to, not shower and throw your pajamas on, and you just get this. And I realized, wow, this is why it's so depressing. I've got the same shirt I've had on for 5 days, and, I haven't showered. And, so I really try to purposely make it like, this is the day that I'm going to go in and see teachers and see kids. And so I get up and I shower and I put on, clean clothes, and because I just think it's really easy to get in that depression mode that we see like on a sitcom when, somebody's got food all over them. Right? I mean, it's easy to do that. And so I learned about 2 weeks in that I can't just lay around. I got to get up and shower and put on deodorant and act like I'm going out and be fresh. So it's been real helpful to be able to exercise and just try to make it as a normal day as possible by just kind of doing my daily routine that I would do for school. So Olivia, what about you?
So I go to Orange Theory as well, and that is super helpful for me. I try to go at least 3 times a week in the morning. So I'll go to like the 5 or the 6 a.m. class. And when I don't go, I feel bad. Like, obviously, I think like anyone would tell you that I feel bad, but there are weeks that I'm just like, I cannot do this. I have to stay up late, whatever. But I really, really try to like 3 times a week in the morning before, no matter how tired I am. I'm a sleepy gal. Like, I'm not a morning person. But that's super helpful. And then I think just like you guys were saying, our routine, I'm big on like the vibe of my apartment. I live alone. My apartment's very small. So if there's like something off, it's really noticeable to me, if that makes sense. Like if it's not clean, I feel like off. And so every morning I get up and I light my candle and I know a big joke on Instagram right now, but I decorated for Christmas the day after Halloween because I was like, I need something. The vibes are off. Like I need something. So I decorated like just, I don't know, like adult stuff, which is so lame to say, but like I get my groceries delivered every Sunday and I schedule, like, so stupid. It's so dumb, but it's like, their therapists are right. You keep a routine. It's like helpful. I don't know. Weird how the professionals know what they're talking about. But obviously I've done stuff too, like my press on nails that I order because I can't go to nail salons or like, I don't know. I still I've gotten my hair done a couple times. Just, I have silly like self-soothy things like that. But for me, when I'm out of a routine, I feel very off. I'm very thankful to be working from home. But because I'm here constantly, I'm like hyper aware of what's going on in my home. So I feel like I need to keep it in order. So
I definitely do like the silly things too. I change my background every other class period. And so the kid, like I have one that will always comment, be like, your background's the same. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So, gotta keep now doing that because somebody noticed. And yeah, same with Gerry. I had to make sure I like coordinate. I coordinate my outfit to make sure that I'm going into school, that people are going to see me. So I started with wearing like sweats and a nice top. And I was like, if I'm standing on camera, because I've had to do that with like fixing my document camera or whatever, then I'm like, okay, I really don't need sweats to see these children over here. And so just being as professional as possible from head to toe, except for shoes. My one self-soothy thing though, is I bought these unicorn slippers because it's starting to get cold. Makes my life so much better.
There you go. And I'm going to throw in there too. One of the things that I've really enjoyed is being able to watch positivity on social media. I've limited the news because it can get depressing, and I'm very careful at what I look on social media. Olivia did a great job about saying, encouraging us to make sure that we're voting for certain platforms and certain ideas, and the TikTok videos that are coming out. I mean, it really can connect you, and so that's really been a health issue too. To go on there and just find positivity that we see on there, and the humor, and the TikTok videos that are coming in, and the dances, and I just think it came at a good time, at least in my life, to be able to focus in on the positivities.
Definitely. Well, I just want to thank all of you so much. This was such a great conversation. I learned so much about, what you guys are going through, and we're, in different parts of the country, but we're all going through some of the same crazy situations. And I definitely picked up some good pointers from you guys as well, too, for things I want to try out. But thank you so much for joining us on this video. For this panel, and stay tuned for more episodes of Remote Teaching Diaries. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.